Do you love TV shows? We do too. Hello, everyone. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Anna, and we're the hosts of We Judge a Show by Its Pilot, a podcast hosted by us, a married couple with an endless love for TV.
Whether you're searching for a new favorite series or ready to revisit an old classic, we're here to guide you through an infinite world of TV shows.
Each episode, we watch and discuss the pilot for shows while also sharing personal stories that parallel the storyline.
So if you're tired of endlessly scrolling and not sure what to watch next, tune in and let us do the searching for you.
We Judge a Show by Its Pilot. New episodes every Tuesday and Friday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Your new favorite show is just one click away. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our pod.
Hello. How's it going?
I'm just realizing that, this is the part of cold weather where I start to kind of lose it a little bit because the heater is always on.
Yeah.
I'm always having to wear socks, which I hate.
Yeah.
I
like socks. You do not.
I'm a child of the country. I like being barefoot. I like being shirtless, and I can't do either because it's too cold, because if we don't want to run the heater, then I have to be layered. And so it's just, trying to figure that out. Also, I have very sensitive skin, and having the heater on all the time.
Yeah, the heater dries the skin out bad.
Yeah.
Like, I just slathered my face with lotion.
I will be doing that once we stop recording.
Yeah.
So other than that, I had work tonight, and
we're coming out of ice-pocalypse, snowpocalypse 2025.
Supposedly, I heard tonight that there might be another winter storm next month.
In 2 weeks, I heard.
Yes.
Someone messaged me. I forgot what friend, but yes, she was like, I heard that snow is coming again in 2 weeks, and I'm like, what the fresh hell is happening? But I guess we'll wait and see. Here's hoping it's not as bad as this time.
Yeah, we will wait and see. All right, so welcome to February. It is the shortest month of the year. It is the second month of the year, and we are starting off the month with a short-lived show that I feel like is more famous because it got canceled.
Oh, yeah.
Because I planned it this way, that the first and last show that we do this month, so I went on a bunch of websites, saw a bunch of rankings of, the best short-lived shows of all time, the most robbed shows of all time is a term I kept seeing, a show that deserved more time, and there were a lot of consistencies, but there are two shows that were consistently in just about everybody's top three.
Yeah.
And Freaks and Geeks was one of them. We're not doing Freaks and Geeks. That's want to save that for another day. And it's a high school show. I don't know. I would have rather done this show because I think this show was so many people's number one.
I think it's iconically number one.
Yes.
If you went up to anyone and said what show was most robbed of having more seasons.
Yeah.
Even if no one ever watched it, they would say My So-Called Life.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
That's what it's known for.
It really is. And then the last show we're doing this month is also considered to be it won't be that hard to find. It's in the top 250 of the top TV shows on IMDb, highest rated shows on IMDb. So is My So-Called Life. So this is a show that I know I watched. Did you watch?
I did.
When it originally aired, it only lasted 19 episodes, so it's an easy watch, I guess, if you want to go back and binge it, which I'm kind of tempted. I kind of want to go back and rewatch all of it.
Was crazy, and we'll talk about this when we get into our questions.
Yeah.
But I looked at the years, and I totally remember watching it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, well, it sounds like we're going to have a lot to talk about, so let's go ahead and do some episode and series information.
All right, My So-Called Life pilot. My So-Called Life was an American teen drama that premiered on ABC on August 25th, 1994. and ended on January 26, 1995. So it was like 6 months.
Yeah,
Like
something like
that was
that.
about it.
Yeah.
It ran for one season and had 19 episodes. The series was created by Winnie Holzman, who was originally a staff writer on shows like The Wonder Years, 30 Something, and Once and Again, but would later go on to write the book for a little known Broadway musical called Wicked.
That's insane. Like, I never knew that.
Yeah. Holtzman also co-wrote the movie script, and Holtzman wrote the pilot for My So-Called Life, and it was directed by Scott Winnett, who frequently worked with Holtzman on 30-something and Once and Again. Producers Edward Zwick and Marshall Herskovitz were looking for a new show to produce after the cancellation of 30-something and approached Holtzman for ideas. Holzman said she wanted to create a teen drama that was a more uncensored depiction of teenage life rather than what was currently playing on TV, like Beverly Hills 90210, which was more exploitative about sexuality and meant to be titillating rather than a show what it meant that was more adolescent, or shows like Saved by the Bell, which took more outdated sitcom format of having the teens live in a bubble where everything works out for them in the end. Again, kind of something we hear a lot. Yeah. The series follows 15-year-old Angela Chase as she tries to navigate her family and her school life. The series mostly focuses on Angela's relationship with her mother, Patty, and her newfound friendship with bad girl Ray Ann. The cast includes Claire Danes as the angsty Angela Chase, Bess Armstrong as Angela's productive mother, Patty, AJ Langer as Rayanne Graff, Angela's new rebellious friend, Wilson Cruz as Ricky Vasquez, Rayanne's empathetic best friend, Devin Gummersall as Angela's neighbor and intelligent classmate, Brian Krakow, and Jared Leto as the mysterious Jordan Catalano. Devin Odessa as Sharon Chursky, the quintessential good girl and Angela's former best friend. Lisa Wilhoit as Danielle Chase, Angela's younger sister, and Tom Irwin as Graham Chase, Angela's laid-back father. Despite the show being praised by critics and audiences alike for its modern and realistic take on being a teenager and for the stellar cast, the show never quite took off, struggled with ratings, and was canceled after one season. Despite this, the show was still nominated for 4 Emmys, and Claire Danes even won a Golden Globe for her portrayal of Angela. And thanks to syndication, DVD releases, and streaming, the show has developed a huge cult following and is often considered to be one of the most robbed shows of all time. You can currently watch the entire series on Hulu.
I mean, just go and watch it on Hulu. I mean, the show's so great.
It's 19 episodes. I mean, you could binge it in a weekend, Friday to Sunday.
Regular 45-minute show. So you watched the show when it originally aired?
Yes, and that exact time frame was when I had my first teaching job. And so I was teaching high schoolers, and so it was very relatable. One, I mean, I was around that, I was obviously a little older.
Right.
I mean, was in graduate school and teaching. I watched it because because it was on, and it was still very much a time in 1994 where you had network television, and if you had cable like HBO and Showtime and Cinemax, maybe you watched it, but you watched what was on the 3 networks.
There wasn't like original content, or at least a lot of it back then.
HBO was mostly back then like movies that were like coming out.
That's pretty much what played on cable. Cable was just reruns and movies.
Yeah.
At least at this point in time.
So I remember watching it.
Yeah. So this was a show that my sister watched, so therefore I was allowed to watch it. It's funny because like I was quite young when the show came out, so it was like I got it, but I didn't fully relate to it, I guess. And then
because Sarah was probably like in high school. She was probably 14.
She would have been in
14 and
eighth grade.
Oh,
She
14
would have been in
and
eighth grade. I would have
15.
been
Oh,
like fifth grade. So she watched it because it was like the, we just talked about Saved by the Bell and 90210. It was like the edgy 90210. It was like the edgy Saved by the Bell. It was like more. It was like the show that, like, your parents probably didn't want you to watch because Angela didn't always, get caught, or she didn't always, like, get in trouble for stuff. Because sometimes when you're a kid, you get away with it.
Well,
And
here's my thing that I think what piqued my interest about it, because I was a 90210, where it's one of the shows we've done, and I still love it. I did not relate to them. One, because they were all really rich.
right.
They went to this fancy high school, drove fancy cars. What was ironic was I was teaching at a very private school where all the kids had very fancy cars. I've talked about the richness of some of these kids. But my so-called life, I was like, oh, that was like my high school experience. That was my high school. I had a very, very diverse high school. I mean, you had your jocks, you had your nerds, you had your smoking section, you had your preppy girls, preppy guys, emo, punkers, you had it all at my high school. It was very diverse. So comparing 90210 to this, I totally agree in the sense of, like, this one was way more relatable.
Right. Yeah. So when I think I was in maybe 11th or 12th grade when My So-Called Life went into syndication on one of the channels, and I started watching it, not really, I guess I remembered it, but, like, I was watching it through the lens of, like, a 10-year-old, so I didn't have, like, a clear memory of it. And I felt the same way you did. I was just like, oh, this is my high school. Like, I went to a really big high school.
Oh, yeah, you went to a way big high school.
No alternative but to be very diverse. I went to an extremely diverse high school, and just the same, it was all the same different groups, and it was a little closer to this. So this would have been like 2001, 2002s, and this is mid 90s. I mean, we were still, like, dressing kind of like that, and we were still kind of listening to that music and that era, and I just remember really relating to it because I think we maybe all go through, maybe not all of us, but I think some of us kind of go through a period where it's not necessarily like a rebellious phase. It's just a phase of, like, exploring and seeing, like, oh, well, I like this kind of music. I mean, because you identify yourself by such basic things when you're a teenager. You're like, oh, I listen to this kind of music, so I have to dress this way, and these are the people I hang out with because we like the same music, or we like the same movies, or we all play the same sport. And it's like, when you separate it, it's like, oh, we don't have anything else in common. That's the era. And I remember, like, watching it, and because I had long hair, and I wore baggy jeans, and I had a wallet chain, and I wore black, and I listened to punk, and I listened to industrial metal, and I just thought I was such a badass. And but beneath it all, I was who I am now. I'm a very emotional, sensitive person, and I take things very personally, and I really tried to have this bravado of, like, I didn't care about anything, and I cared very much. Not necessarily what people thought of me, but, like, I didn't want to, like, hurt people's feelings, or I didn't want, like, people to, I guess I do care what people think, because, like, I didn't want people to, like, not like me, or I was very concerned with that, and I still am like that. I'm still a very sensitive person. I'm a very emotional person. I'm a very reactive person. I do not have a poker face unless I'm at work, and any other time, it's very clear how I feel by my face. And I've always been that way. But I tried so hard to be this specific way when I was a teenager, and I just, like, it was watching My So-Called Life and being 17, 18 years old. I'm like, oh, that's what I'm doing right now. I should just be okay with being myself. And I don't know if My So-Called Life, like, made me think that way, but I remember watching it and being like, why am I so hung up on, like, how I dress, or why am I so hung up on, like, I can only hang out with, like, these people, I can only hang out with these type of people.
Well, what I always think is funny about stuff like that, and we've talked about this before, it's when, like, the groups I will call them like the emo
Yeah.
or the punk rock group
Yeah.
or, you know, the like heavy metal group.
We were
at the
generalized
school.
as the freaks.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I don't even know. I wouldn't have called y'all freaks.
Well,
but,
that's what we were called.
but like, I always felt like it was just funny that they'd be like making fun of us. Cause like I would have probably have classified myself in high school as like preppy.
Yeah.
Like, but again, I will also go down as saying I did not have any style whatsoever. Like, I mean, my mom made my clothes a lot of the times, or I got stuff on sale,
Yeah.
and like I was not shopping at the Limited or the Esprit store or anything like that.
I think
But what I always found funny was like, okay, y'all make fun of us because you think we all dress alike. So do y'all.
Exactly.
Like, I'm
Exactly.
like, like, do y'all not look at each other? Y'all all look the same too. So y'all all try to act like you're all individualistic
it
and whatever,
is.
and
Yeah.
you're not.
Exactly.
So that's what you look back on, and you're like, God, we were all so freaking stupid.
Right.
Like, yeah. So
I mean, it's just like I said, when you're 17, 18, you don't have much to go off of. And so what you do is you base your personality off of the music you listen to, the movies you watch, the sport you play. And now looking back on it, it's like, yeah, like my love for movies is a part of my personality, but it's not like I only hang out with people that watch a lot of movies. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just, I mean, my music taste, like, it's really what I will say about today's generation, about the young kids today, is like, they don't give a about what music they listen to or what other people listen to. That was such a big deal when I was a teenager. Like, what music you listen to and what group you were part of. You can only, if you got accused of listening to this kind of music, then you would get made fun of. And like, the teenagers I work with now, they're just like Mason, he's just like, yeah, listen to Taylor Swift. And then like Jordan tried to clown him. I'm like, Jordan, I don't think his generation cares. Like, I think they're just like, it's music. Cause I mean, also I think music just isn't what it used to be, but also like, it's just not, I don't know, like, it's just a shift, I guess. But like, it's just interesting now that like, I love the younger generation in that sense, where it's just like, yeah, we just listen to what we want to listen to. We watch what we want to watch, and we don't really care what our friends have to say because they're watching the same stuff too. And I think it took us older people to make that okay, because we got made fun of for watching cartoons and anime when we were in high school, but now it's such the norm.
oh my
so
God,
like,
now that's all like on YouTube.
they have like anime clubs, and
Yeah,
they have
like,
they have
shows about it.
they have esports, and they have video game teams in high schools. Like, I mean,
Right.
that's what our friend Josh does. That's part of his job, is he regulates all of that. So yeah, we really got off on a tangent there, but so yeah, I think I always kind of wondered like why my so-called life didn't catch on, like what was, like, why it was being so well reviewed, and like people were, I don't know if maybe people just weren't tuning in, or I don't know, but like I always kind of wondered like why it didn't click. And I think it's just because, I don't know, like maybe it just was too realistic, or maybe it was too, like, I don't know, like when we watch Beverly Hills 90210, it's very like sexual, and I mean, like, I guess it was meant to be like sexual and titillating, whatever word you want to use, but
Well, we don't look up the day of the week that it played.
No.
So that's something
Yeah.
that's going to be important that
That's
I
true.
say here.
yeah.
That fall was also the start of Friends
Oh, yeah,
and
that's
ER.
true.
I don't know
Yeah.
if that came on Thursday nights, but those were like the two
Yeah, this is on
launching of
ABC.
juggernauts.
Yeah,
So
and
this was NBC
and this was,
like Must See TV
yeah,
and
ABC had TGIF, so
Oh, okay.
if they weren't, obviously this had come on a Friday night because this wasn't a sitcom. Yeah, so yeah, if it came on like a
Monday night.
yeah.
They were competing with Monday Night Football in the
Right.
fall. So, yeah, those are the kind of things I try to think about. And we don't, you didn't look up, and I mean, we haven't really
Yeah.
for any of our shows of what exact day of the week, unless we knew it was part
right.
of
TGIF or Must See TV.
right.
Or, yeah.
So I just wonder if just the day of the week it fell on.
Yeah.
It just didn't succeed because it was competing against something else that was bigger. I mean, Friends and ER, I just remember those
right out of the gate.
Yeah, those were massive.
Yeah.
So that might have been it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's almost like, and I wonder with a lot of these shows, a lot of shows that are short-lived, not just ones that we're doing this month, but other shows like Freaks and Geeks and Pushing Daisies and I'm Dying Up Here was another one that we both really liked. That was only 2 seasons long. I thought about doing that. I thought about doing that for this month, but I was just like,
we'll save it.
Well, we're gonna save it, and it's the pilot is really, really heavy, so it's a very sad pilot. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, it just.
So I don't know. I don't know why it didn't succeed. Who knows? I mean, and again, you just never know what the executives at a studio are looking for.
Right.
I mean, were they not getting sponsors? Because, I mean, commercials were still really big.
True.
And, you know, if it was controversial in any way, like maybe they didn't get sponsors. And I wonder if that was part of it. But who knows?
So in the pilot, at least in the pilot, and it is a continuing, at least from my memory, it's a continuing theme of the show is the struggle between Angela and her mother. Very classic dynamic when you become a teenager of, you know, I'm going to be honest, like, I mean, I got along with my mom fine. My dad and I mean, we kind of had some dynamic issues, but like I was a very, like, when I was in trouble, I was like I never like yelled back at my parents, and I was very when I got in trouble I was very quiet, and I just kind of knew, I mean, in my teenage brain I was like, just get this lecture over with so they can stop yelling at me. It's just kind of that was always my thought.
So how old were you when your dad married Shelley?
I was May 97. I was 12. I was 12 years old.
So I'm wondering, like, I mean, your dad had a lot going on.
Yeah.
He was getting remarried, taking in 2 new stepsons,
and they were living there full time.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I can only imagine like the stress that maybe your dad was under, and that creates a dynamic.
Yeah, there was, you know, I'm sure at some point we'll do a show where it's a step family or a blended family, and I could talk about all that, but those first couple of years were rough. And I mean, they weren't awful or anything. It's nothing like that, but they were, at least for me and Tyler, because we had to share a room, and that was like, never had to share a room with anyone ever. I'm almost 13 years old.
Right.
And we can, that is an entire episode. So if we ever do a show about like a step family or a blended family, definitely gonna talk about all that. But what we're gonna talk about is there's kind of this moment in the pilot when, you know, Patty and Angela are kind of having a back and forth, and a little bit later, Patty says something along the lines of like, it's like she's a stranger now, or it's like she's a completely different person now. When you become a teenager, it's kind of, you know, the little kid mentality goes away. You don't believe, you know, you don't think your parents are perfect anymore. You don't believe everything your parents say. And I feel like there's maybe not a moment, but like an era or like a period of time where like you and your parents are trying to figure this out, like changing and becoming a teenager, becoming an adult, having hormones, you know, you getting your period, you know, boys constantly having a boner, for like
smells.
2 solid years. We stunk. We were getting stringy hairs in weird places, and so for me, there really wasn't like a moment with my parents, but there were moments where I knew that like I was changing, hormonal wise, physically. Were there moments like that for you, or maybe a moment for your dynamic with your parents?
Well, as I've mentioned, I got my period pretty early.
Yeah.
Like I was 10, 11, and but what was crazy was, so I was a lot taller than people when I was in like 5th grade, but then I stopped. Like I was this tall in 5th grade, the height I am now. I didn't grow much more after the 5th, 6th grade. But I've told you this before that I was not developed very much. I did not have the boobies that I have today. In fact, I think I've told you the story about we were on a church youth group and a guy in the bus was looking at like a car magazine and there was that spray called Fix-A-Flat.
Oh my God.
And he was like, you could use this.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I that was like high school, you know. It's I just remember like being really mortified by that, you know, obviously. And so
well, yeah.
I was not very well developed or anything physically.
Gotcha.
But the thing is that's unique about my situation was my brothers and sisters both had siblings at home when they were teenagers. I did not.
That's true.
My sister went off to college. My brother was gone and in the Army and then went to LSU by 1976. He was out of the house. I was 6, 7. And then my sister went to college and then got married and she was out of the house by 1981 when I was 11, 12.
Gotcha.
And so I turned into a teenager all alone.
Gotcha.
Like I was it. And as I've discussed before, my dad was a merchant marine, was gone a lot of the time throughout the year.
Yeah.
And so it was really from 1981 on me and my mom.
Yeah.
And I even mean that through the time she died.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I feel like my struggle was more because the focus was only on me.
Gotcha.
I didn't have the buffer of my siblings to like, you know, like I was it.
Yeah.
I was like, what are you doing? Where are you going? Who are you with? What are your grades?
Right.
What activities are you in? Where do I need to take you? Or like, who is this? Who's this friend? Who's calling? Like, I was it. And so I feel like that was probably our struggle. But I have also talked about like how my mom did not, I did not suffer the faults of my siblings. Like
Gotcha.
she also was very much like, you were your own person.
Yeah.
I will give you chances and we'll talk about this in a minute. This is your next, one of your next questions about being rebellious. But, I don't know. I will definitely not say my dad, like, I don't think my dad noticed anything. My dad was always just very happy-go-lucky and always just happy to be home. And I'm not going to say he wanted to be like the good cop or whatever. He just, you know, he was always very sweet and stuff. And, you know, my mom had to be the disciplinarian because she was the only one at home.
Right.
And she pretty much ran the house and the bills and kept the house going. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there was ever truly a moment. I will say I always knew my mom was boss. Like there were no questions.
Yeah.
Like that, there was no debating that. And it really came with, I don't know if I've ever said this, but when my brother was born, she asked her I guess her OBGYN or my brother's pediatrician or something, like, what is your best parental advice? And he said, you make all the choices. Like your kids do not have choices. And not that you can't ask your kids to have a choice or a voice, but he's just like, you are the boss. Like until they can pay their own way and fend for themselves, like, you make those decisions. It's you know, sometimes when I hear like friends talk about like that they fight with their kids in the morning and I'm like I didn't have those things. My mom was like, pick something out to wear and get the hell out of the house. Like you're going to be late. Like, I mean, and again, I get it. Like kids are a struggle. We all have jobs now. Right. My mom did not work. So again, I'm not dissing anyone, but we did not have that dynamic. My mom was pretty much very much in charge. Yeah. And we did not question that. Like there was, and I think it's also sort of defined me today. I'm a good decision maker. I can make a very pointed, thought out decision and try to like be focused about it. But I think that comes from my mom because she couldn't make the mistakes of being indecisive because she was the only one making the decision. Yeah. So I think I get a lot of that from her.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, that was kind of a long answer.
It's okay.
I talk a lot. You know this is my problem.
Why we have a podcast. Get it all out. So my side of things, so like I think a lot of things that you touched on that I want to kind of like also touch on kind of comes the next question for me personally. So because my rebellious phase centers around a lot of the dynamic that I had with my siblings and my parents. But I will say that, like, I thought of this story earlier when we were first talking about, like, when I was telling you what the questions were going to be and what we were going to talk about. And I was like, well, it could be like anything, like a moment where you realize that, like, your body was changing because, you know, that's Angela is so, like, kind of, you know, very insecure and very quiet and very, like, introverted because she's very, you know, she's figuring out who she is. And I think I had a moment where I realized that I was already in puberty. I was in 8th grade, so I was a little bit of a late bloomer. I wouldn't say I was like a complete late bloomer because by the time I got to high school, like I'd hit puberty. So like that's all that mattered. Because there were still kids that like had hit puberty when I started high school.
Wow.
Yeah. But I was a little bit of a late bloomer, and it was the second semester because it was winter time. So here we are. It was winter time, and I decided to wear sweatpants, and I had boxer shorts on, so everything was very loose down there. And it was the first time that I noticed. Sorry for anyone who knows me. Anyone who knows me who doesn't want to hear this. It was when I first noticed I had a bulge. And I went the entire day with this bulge because I didn't wear shorts underneath. I didn't wear like regular shorts underneath my sweatpants, which is what you're supposed to do if you're going to wear boxer shorts and you have a pubescent wiener and and so I walked the whole day just being. It was the first time. I'll never forget it because it was
like popping.
He was just bulging. He was just bulging. I didn't have like a boner or anything.
Well, no,
it was just
like,
he was out.
He was out.
People looked down a couple times, a few times, and not like in a sexual way, like in a, oh my god, like what the hell is he doing?
Put that back.
And so it was the first time where I really was like, oh, this body. Like I was just
can't handle it.
And then so I think that was the last time I ever wore sweatpants to school. But yeah, like it was just a funny story. I mean, it's not like looking back on it now, I'm the only person that remembers this. If anyone else remembers that, it's creepy. So so that was just a funny story, I thought. But the dynamic between my parents and my siblings, so I don't know if I've fully talked about my family on this podcast. I know I've like mentioned them and stuff like that, and we've given them shout outs and stuff. Sarah and Mom, hey.
Hello.
Hey, Jeej. So my parents divorced in 93, I think, 93 or 94. It was just me and my sister. So my sister, Sarah, she is almost 4 years older than me. She's about 4 years older than me. And then when my dad met Shelly, my stepmom, that was in 96, I think was when they met each other, 95, 96. And that was when I got two stepbrothers, and that one is Wes, who is 5 years older than me, and then Tyler, who we're the same age. He's like 3 months younger than me.
Yeah.
So when that happened, things drastically changed, and the dynamic changed, and so it was like my dad's house was just so chaotic all the time.
That's what I'm saying.
It was just so chaotic all the time. And when I would go to my mom's house, it was very quiet. It was really chill. It was really laid back. So I had these like two very like drastically different home lives, and it was, I'm not gonna say like, oh my god, it was so hard, but like, I mean, it was tough at first, and it was tough. Like,
I can't imagine that.
It was tough, kind of like looking back on it. The chaos, some of it was so much fun, some of it was so great, a lot of laughs, we have a lot of stories, we have a lot of inside jokes, we have a lot of cracking each other up at the dinner table and annoying our parents and stuff like that. But just as many fights, just as many. So the question I had here was, did you have a rebellious phase? I'll start. So pretty much starting in like ninth grade, maybe eighth grade was when I started to kind of intentionally defy my parents. Looking back on it now, in the moment, obviously I didn't think I was doing it on purpose, and I didn't think I was doing it with the intent of like getting my parents' attention, but I really feel like now I was just trying to get some attention. I was just trying to, it wasn't like I was neglected or anything. There was just, my mom was a single mom and she worked full time and she was a nurse and she worked crazy hours. And then you go over to my dad's house and there's 4 of us running around and we're all doing different things. We're all different ages. We all have drastically different personalities, and it was very chaotic. And it just I don't know, like looking back on it now. So I started, first thing I started doing was I started listening to, I started listening to like punk. I started listening to like heavy metal. I think like I really like upset my parents when I started listening to like, very poorly dated now because he's a piece of shit, but I listened to like Marilyn Manson. I listened to like 9 Inch Nails and Skinny Puppy and like all these like industrial metal bands that were very like goth, and they wore makeup, and it was very like their songs were very like vulgar, and then I started dressing the way I dressed, and I started growing my hair out, and I started sneaking out, and I started I kind of started partying when I was like, I will always say I was entirely too young, because I wasn't just, I'm not going to get into super big detail about it, but I wasn't like going to a party and drinking alcohol. I was doing things that were a little bit harder than that. I'm not going to get into it, but like it was the era, but I was partying way too young, and I was doing things I really shouldn't have been doing. And now looking back on it, at the time, looking back on it now, it was very much me just experimenting and exploring and seeing what all the fuss is about. Just kind of seeing what I had access to it.
I ask you about it all the time because I did not do any of that.
I had access to it, so it was just kind of like, I want to try it. I want to do it. And I did. And I survived, and I didn't, nothing terrible happened.
Well, I know, but we're not like saying like,
right. Nothing terrible happened. I'm saying that right now. And, nothing terrible happened to me. Nothing like, nothing bad happened. It was just, I partied and I got into, I was just constantly getting in trouble at home, and I was not doing well in school, and I was continuously sneaking out of the house and smoking pot and doing all these other things, and it was just constantly getting in trouble. I think I got suspended from school every year from 9th to 12th grade at least once.
Oh gosh, wow.
I was a bad, heart of gold, but I was a bad kid. Like honestly, I was just dumb. I wasn't so much that I was bad. I was just an idiot. But yeah, so I looking back on it now, obviously, it kind of was something that like I was originally doing for attention, but it just kind of got out of control. Yeah. I think it kind of got more than just trying to get attention, and it was just more of me just seeing how far I could take it, and seeing each time I would do something, I'd be like, okay, well that ended up being okay. Well, now let me try this thing. And by the time I was 21, I was over it, and I was like not going. I remember turning 21, people like, you going out? I'm like, no. I'm just like, I'm done, dude. Like, I'm done, brah. Like, I moved to Florida, and I had a fun little time for a little while, because I was in a new city, and Destin is such an extremely hard party town, especially during spring break and summer. So I had a little bit of fun there, but outside of that, like, I just, like, I don't, that's why, honestly, that's, like, why I don't really drink. It's why I don't really, like, going out to a bar just feels like I just don't want to do it. Like, it's just so funny now because I kind of got it all out of my system.
Yeah.
And by the time I was, like 19 or 20, I kind of got it all out of my system, and I was like, all right, I'm good. Like, I don't need to do this anymore. And it's just funny now looking back on it, because, yeah, I was definitely doing it for attention. But yeah, my dad used to randomly drug test me, and
Wow.
yeah, I mean, like, I can't tell you how many times I got my car taken away from me. There was a point, I think it was like somewhere in my junior year, where I was like, okay, I have to stop doing some things because I want that car back. I was just like, I want that car. I want that piece of crap car that is a third hand-me-down. Because that was my independence. So it was just kind of like, it was just like, okay, well, I need to stop doing some things so I can get my car back. So I kind of just learned how to not get caught.
Right.
I stopped hanging out with certain people that my parents didn't have a preconceived, like, negative view on. I stopped hanging out with, like, the bad influence kids, in their eyes at least. But we were all a bad influence on each other. But yeah, so I would say my rebellious phase turned into a lifestyle. For a little while. It was more than just a phase. But yeah, like, it's just funny looking back on it now, because I was so stupid. But yeah, that's my rebellious phase story, I guess. There's so much more to it, but no way in hell I'm talking about it on this podcast. So if anyone wants to, like, pay to hear this, I'll do that. But no, I'm not willingly talking about it on our fun little podcast. So anyway, did you have a rebellious phase? I mean, I know you got along with for the most part, you got along with your mom, and y'all kind of did your own thing, but
yes. However, so my mom was a big believer in my job was school.
Yeah.
That was it. That was all I had to do. And I went to a magnet school, although she didn't pressure me to, like, have a 4.0 or anything like that. Was not part of her, like, mandate on me, but I had to have good grades. I had to pass everything.
Right.
So if I ever did bring home a bad grade of a D or an F, I would be kind of, I guess, quote unquote, punished. I mean, I never thought of it per se as being punished, rather than, like, if there was a dance, she wouldn't let me go.
Yeah.
So I guess that's punished, but I didn't see it that way. Like, I think of, like, little kids being punished and being put in a corner. Like, I guess it is being punished by not being able to go and do something fun. So my rebellious phase was whenever I did get a bad grade of some sort, that she was just like, you're slacking, or, you can do better than a C- or something. She would be like, you can't go out this weekend, or, you can't go to that party. Well, I always found a way to go to the party, and that would be sneaking out of the house.
Right.
And, like, 'cause she was always in bed by like 8 o'clock or so. And I had maneuvered, and any of my friends who are listening to this podcast had ever been to my house. So, like, we had 4 bedrooms that went along one whole side of the house.
Yeah.
The front bedroom, like the small middle bedroom, then there was a third bedroom, and then my parents' bedroom was all the way in the back of the house. And in high school, like, I moved around between the first bedroom and the third bedroom. I never lived in the small middle bedroom that was my brother's at one point. But anyway, his bedroom, though, was the window where the air conditioning filter was. And so I could prop open his window, hop out onto the air conditioning unit, and then I could open the gate and leave. Yeah. And so I would do that all the time, all the time. And so I remember like one year, I never officially got caught. She never ever busted me, although she hinted around about it one time that she knew I snuck out, but that I think she fell back asleep and I came home. And when she woke up, I was already back. So it wasn't like she could say she caught me because I was already there. I think that's her story. But anyway, so like sophomore, junior year of high school, you go to visit college campuses to like interview and try to get scholarships. And so I was visiting Millsaps College and Mississippi College in Jackson and like I think it's like Clinton, Mississippi. And it was on a Saturday. Like I guess that's like, you know, you had to go on Saturdays to go to do these interviews. And so we were supposed to be leaving at like 6 or 7 in the morning because my interview was at like 9 in the morning. So it'd take about like 2.5 hours, 2 hours to get to Jackson from New Orleans. So we were probably leaving at like 6 in the morning if it was up to my mom. And I had snuck out, had gone to this party, and I had walked actually because it was in like the subdivision, like through the woods. You're gonna be like, what? So I like went through the woods, went to the next subdivision over, all on foot, and went to this party, and I fell asleep at the party. And I woke up and I was like, where the hell am I? I'm like, what time is it? And like someone else, like there were other people still there, and they were like, it's like 5 o'clock. I like bolted out. I mean, I guess I had been drinking. I mean, of course I was probably drinking. Ran, like literally, thank God I played soccer at the time. So like I'm like sprinting. I mean, and I was probably, I'm like, dude, it was like maybe 5 streets away. And again, through the woods, but 5 streets away in the next subdivision over. And like, I climbed back through the window, went to use the bathroom, jumped back in bed. Cause my mom was like, I'm waking you up at like 6 o'clock. And, you know, like jumped back in bed. And like, literally it was like 2 seconds later, my mom was like, get up. And I'm like, oh my God, I haven't slept, you know? And so we're going to Jackson. And so anytime my mom and I took road trips, like we drove to Miami together, we drove in the car to New York together, just the two of us. Yeah. We were going on these college campus tours together. Her rule was I had to stay up to talk to her. Like I couldn't sleep. Like when you and I are coming back from Biloxi, I can be asleep in like 5 minutes. And
driving back from New Orleans.
Yeah, driving back from New Orleans, I'll be asleep.
Driving back from the restaurant.
Yeah,
down the street.
she'll be like, you have to stay up, you have to talk to me, and you have to keep me company.
Yeah, you don't have to do that with me.
I was dying. I was like, first off, I was dying because I was like, I have to like actually talk to college admissions people in about 2 hours, and I look like shit. Anyway, so that was one. I think I've talked about the time that I snuck out of the house to go to that party with my friend Carrie.
You gave me a heart attack. We
went in the van and got pulled over by the police for running the toll.
In the van. You just hear yourself.
The van. I'm trying to think of another time I snuck out of the house. That was probably I did actually sneak out of the house one time, and I went to a dance. A friend picked me up. We went for like an hour and a half, and then she drove me back. My mom never knew. I did take the car, and I got caught because I did not have a car. My parents did not give us cars, not any one of us, and that was the time that she sort of threatened to like send me to the convent, and she thought I was like being really bad. And my dad, of course, was like, we're not sending her to a convent. But you know, that was probably the one time I got in like a lot of trouble. But that actually ended up being, that was like at the end of junior year of high school. So it was going into summer, and I had my job at Chuck E. Cheese. So, you know, I got out of the house that way because she would obviously let me go to work. So I worked a ton that summer. But that was probably it. I mean, I'm trying to think, like, I didn't really rebel in clothing because I did not have money to buy clothes. That wasn't what I spent my money on. I liked my clothes that my mom made. I mean, you know, they weren't fancy, but they were things that I designed and I picked out. I did, because my hair is so plain, I like, it's just straight, dark brown, black. It doesn't do anything. And so like, I remember one summer I, kind of in the pilot, Angela dyes her hair. I think we'll talk about that. But I kept putting hydrogen peroxide in my hair because I had heard that would like change your hair. And my hair is so dark, like it
Yeah.
didn't do anything the first time. And so then I put some more in, and then another day I put it in. And all of a sudden my mom, and I really honestly did not notice. And all of a sudden, like my mom at dinner one day is like, is your hair orange?
Yep.
And I was like, what? And she was like, your hair is orange.
Yep.
Because the only like hair product besides like shampoo and conditioner that I ever used was mousse or hairspray.
Yeah.
Like those were about the fancy like beauty products I
Yeah.
ever had. And my mom was like, it is that mousse that like, oh my gosh, like you are not putting that in your hair anymore. And I had orange hair. I think that was like sophomore year
Gotcha.
that happened. And it took like a full year and a couple of haircuts to come out.
Someone who...
Because
yep.
she didn't give, like she was just like, you're gonna have orange hair because you did this to yourself.
Yep.
Like my mom was not okay, it's okay, we'll go get you some hair color. No, I had orange hair
Yep.
for like a good year.
Well, when you have really dark hair and you try to blonde it,
It goes orange.
It goes orange because I did the same thing.
I know, we were twins.
I put Sunnin in my hair because Tyler, my stepbrother, he was born a blonde.
Yeah.
And so
He's a blonde.
Yeah, his hair was starting to darken, and so he would put Sunnin in his hair, and it would make his hair blonde because his hair can naturally turn blonde. I was not given that luxury. I had light hair when I was little, but I look at different pictures of me from over my childhood, and I always had like different colored hair.
Yeah.
Like I had like reddish hair when I was really, really little, and then I had like dirty blonde hair. And then when I hit puberty, my hair got really dark. Like dark brown. So I was like, okay, well, I want to try and make my hair blonde because I thought maybe my hair would turn blonde. It turned orange.
Yeah.
It turned like a burnt orange.
You've seen my picture of me with the orange hair.
I don't know if I've ever showed you a picture of me with.
Oh,
with,
I've seen that one where you have your hair down the middle.
Yeah. Oh yeah. My Sean Hunter hair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think we had different rebellious phases, but you know, I always feel like you're right. We're testing, we're feeling ourselves out. That sounded kind of pervy.
Well, yeah, I keep saying exploring. That sounds weird too, but I mean, like that's
we're
just the way I look at it.
Ourselves out.
Yeah.
And again, me probably taking the family car for a joyride around the West Bank.
It happens.
Wasn't the best idea, but I mean, you know, no one was harmed.
All right, ready to get into this plot summary?
Let's do it.
I knew we were gonna be chatting a long time on this one.
Oh my gosh, we're already.
It's like
almost
almost
an
one.
hour.
It's almost 1 o'clock in the morning, y'all.
Oh my god, I didn't even know what time it was.
It's 12:37.
Dang.
All right, my so-called life pilot plot summary. 15-year-old Angela Chase and her best friend Rayanne Graff attempt to swindle money from strangers on the street. Through voiceover, Angela describes her life and disillusionment with school and friends, revealing that she has recently become close with the free-spirited Rayanne while drifting away from the more conventional friends she's had since childhood. Later, Angela dyes her hair red at the request of Rayanne. After school, Angela brings Rayanne and her other friend Ricky over to her family's house, where they are met with wariness from Angela's mother, Patty. Angela's distance from her father, Graham, is also revealed when he mistakenly thinks that Anne Frank is a friend at her school. Yeah, so in her class, I mean, we're going to talk about it in a second. In her class, they're reading Diary of Anne Frank, and there's this whole, not parallel, but she's kind of referencing it throughout the episode. The next day, Angela reveals her crush on fellow high school student Jordan Catalano. Rayanne tells Angela to come to a party because Jordan will be there. In a meeting for the yearbook club, Angela abruptly leaves and says she's not coming back. Her exit is observed by Brian Krakow, Angela's awkward neighbor who harbors a crush on her. Later, Angela's former best friend Sharon confronts Angela about quitting yearbook in the presence of her parents. A surprised Patty starts to question Angela about it, but she walks out. In class, an English teacher asks a question about Anne Frank, which Angela waywardly responds to saying Anne was lucky because she was, quote, stuck in an attic for 3 years with a guy she really liked. I mean, how more of a 15-year-old answer could that be?
That's her way of looking at it.
Prompting a lecture from the teacher. Later, the teacher meets with Angela about her academic struggles, asking if there is something going on that has prompted the changes in her behavior. That night, Angela sneaks out to the party by telling Graham the lie that she's attending a rehearsal for a play. At the party, a band plays and general chaos ensues as crowds begin to mosh and crowd surf in the backyard. They smosh. That's where the name came from. Angela gets knocked over into a puddle. Going into the house to clean up, she finds Jordan sitting alone on a couch. The two strike up a friendly chat, but it's cut short when Jordan's friends call him away, and that's when Angela comes back home and her parents berate her as she tries to diffuse the tension. At lunch the next day, Rayanne invites Angela to a rave that Jordan will be going to. Angela has a run-in with Sharon in the ladies' bathroom, where Sharon reveals other kids are spreading rumors about her. Sharon expresses resentment at Angela for ditching their friendship and claims that Rayanne is just using her. So Sharon referenced another girl that Rayanne was friends with that she did this to, and I don't remember. I wonder if they ever referenced that again, or if that was just a pilot thing.
I don't remember.
At a family dinner, Patty denies Angela's request to sleep over at Rayanne's house and insults Rayanne as well as Ricky's bisexuality and his wearing of eyeliner. God, and that was taboo back then. That's insane.
I didn't talk about the time
yeah.
I started wearing makeup, and I remember my sister was like, I think she was home from college.
Yeah.
It was in junior high, and my mom was just like, I don't care. It's eyeliner.
Yeah.
If that's the least of it,
well, and I always kind of not laugh, but I always think it's funny that, women or people Patty and Graham's age who are kind of, questioning why this boy is wearing eyeliner. It's like, dude, the musicians that you listened to back in the day all wore makeup. Like David Bowie and Steven Tyler and Queen and Kiss. They all wore makeup. It's just whatever. This results in a heated argument where Angela storms off and leaves for the rave. Outside of her house, she is confronted by Brian, who tells her she is ruining her life, but she persists. Outside the rave, Angela, Rayanne, and Ricky wait for unseen character Tino to show, which is a funny thing. It's the gag throughout the whole show is they always reference Tino, but you never see him. Wait for unseen character Tino to show and let them into the event, but he does not. Later, Rayanne and Angela get picked up by two older men who leave Ricky behind. One of the men calls Rayanne over and attempts to assault her before Angela intervenes. A police officer takes the girls in, making it clear he is not arresting them. As Angela gets into the police car, Jordan happens to be passing by and recognizes her, calling out her name before the car door is closed. The car stops over at Rayanne's house, and Angela notices that no one is home. On the drive back to her house, Angela relates a deep insight about Anne Frank's Diary of a Young Girl to the police officer. She convinces the officer to not escort her to the front door, but Brian sees her come out of the policeman's car and attempts to pry the truth out of her. As they talk, Angela spots her father with another woman. I remembered that there was an affair.
Oh, yeah.
I was getting my Dawson's Creek and my Most So-Called Life. I was like, which parent is it? I can't remember. I was like, isn't the dad a newscaster? That was the mom on Dawson's Creek. So I was getting them mixed up. 90s teen drama. Give me a break. Angela reconciles with Patty after apologizing to her and breaking down in tears. The next day at school, Angela talks with Jordan intimately for the first time, and she smiles. End of episode. All right, so we didn't talk about this earlier, but one of your favorite movies, Bachelorette, they pose a question.
Yes.
And it is Krakow or Catalano.
Yeah.
So the nice guy or the bad boy?
I will
at 15.
I will probably say I was almost always for the good guy. I learned lessons from my siblings' mistakes. While my mom never held those against me, I always tried to learn from them. I kind of learned that lesson in the sense of if I date a bad guy, my mom's never going to let me go out with him.
Gotcha.
Because I dated in high school, I talked about the guy I had makeups and breakups with throughout. He was top 10 in our class. I dated the class, our quarterback of the football team. So he was a sporty athletic guy. I dated a guy on the soccer team. And I was also never afraid for my mom to meet them. I never hid them. So yeah.
I always like the smart girls.
Yeah. So
yeah, I always like the smart girls. So even though a second ago I was talking about high school, I didn't, and the cliques and stuff like that. Even though I was kind of a part of this certain clique, I dated a girl that was in band. I dated a girl that was on the dance team. I dated a girl that was like in art club and played soccer. Like, I mean, I'm kind of the same. I kind of just dated who I liked. It wasn't really anything. Also, there was like in my friend group, there was just so much. I mean, it's not real incest, but there was just so much inner dating in my friend group that I just wasn't interested in that at all. So I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna look elsewhere for for a girlfriend. And yeah, like I always liked the girl that was really nice. I always liked the girl that was really smart. I always liked the girl that if she liked horror movies, I was just like, you're amazing.
You're cool.
You're cool. But yeah, like so if the girl version of Krakow and Catalano, I would go for girl Krakow.
Yeah.
I'd go for the nice girl.
And I always love that description, Krakow or
Catalano,
because it was just totally perfect.
Alliteration,
yeah.
It works.
Yeah.
All right, you think that wraps this one up? We need to get in bed.
You got to get up to go to work again.
And then we got to record tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right, that wraps up this episode. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already, go ahead and follow us on whichever platform you're listening to this podcast on. That way you'll be notified every time we publish a new episode. You can also follow us on Instagram at WeJudgePilotPod. You can also follow us on Facebook. You can leave us a comment, suggest a show for us to watch, or you can leave some emojis in the comments. What you got?
All right, I don't have that many. The redhead.
You need to start making more emojis.
I know. I keep telling y'all need emojis. The school... a house, because she's at her house, the cop car, a book to represent like the diary of Anne Frank, the yearbook, the tree, because Krakow is
always
like
in that damn tree.
He's in that tree when the cop car comes. The party hat, like any of like the family emojis. Yeah. So, all right. Well, we are gonna head out, but we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening.